Aloha everyone, and welcome back to the Kilauea Eruption and Leilani Estates update for August 10th, 2018. I just want to quickly take a moment to say welcome to all the new subscribers. If you haven't subscribed, you might want to go ahead and do so. We'll be putting out more videos as things continue, so hit that subscribe button down at the bottom and don't forget to hit the bell icon with it. That way you can get notified when I put out a video. Secondly, what I want to say is I probably will not be posting a video tomorrow for Saturday, August 11th update. I'm going to work on some other projects that I want to take care of. At least I'm going to try to anyways. And finally, I wanted to remind everybody that I have started a Patreon account. You can find a link to that Patreon in the description, and you will also be able to find one at the end of the video, I'm pretty sure, if I can remember how I did it last time. So anyhow, let's get to the update, because there's a few things I want to show y'all in the look at that there segment, which is actually pretty cool. So let's go right to the update now.
On Friday, August 10th, 2018 at 1:17 p.m. Hawaii Standard Time, USGS reports a small lava pond remains in the Fissure 8 cone. Observations yesterday, August 9th, show the pond to be largely crusted over with only minor areas of incandescence. Fissure 8 and the channel leading from Fissure 8 show no sign of reactivation. Fissures 9, 10, and 24 uprift of Fissure 8 and the downrift fissures 13, 23, 3, 21, and 7 continue to steam, but are not incandescent. Lava is oozing at several points along the Kapoho Bay and Ahalanui coastline, creating wispy lace plumes. Although the lull in the lower East Rift Zone activity continues, it is common for eruptions to go through periods of diminished output or to pause completely, only to return with renewed vigor days and weeks later or longer. Resumption of the activity on the lower East Rift Zone could occur at any time, and residents should absolutely remain informed and heed Hawaii County Civil Defense messages and warnings. SO2 emissions from the summit, Pu'u'o'o, and the lower East Rift Zone are all at low levels. Lower East Rift Zone emissions on August 5th through 6th were greater than or less than 200 tons per day. Pu'u'o'o emissions on August 6th through 7th were 200 to 300 tons per day, and summit emissions when last measured on July 19th were around 100 tons per day. This SO2 release represents the lowest SO2 emitted from Kilauea for over a decade. Now, despite the low emission rates, SO2 plumes were blown towards populated areas in East Hawaii by southeast winds on August 9th, and many individuals reported detecting the smell of sulfur. Weather conditions contributed to this, but in addition, as the eruption vents cool down, small amounts of H2S, hydrogen sulfide, are generated. The human nose can detect H2S at very low levels, adding to the overall perception of increased sulfur emission. And now up on the Kilauea Volcano summit, it has been over a week since the most recent collapse event at the summit on August 2nd. Summit seismicity continues to be low over the last 24 hours, with less than 5 located earthquakes per hour and a maximum magnitude of a M2.0. Summit deflation is negligible. HVO will continue to monitor Kilauea closely for any signs of change in activity. The next status report will be issued tomorrow morning unless significant changes occur. There was no information presented about Highway 130 just south of Leilani Estates, so again we will logically assume there has been no change in crack width, temperature, or emissions at that location. Looking at the EPA sensor map, I'm just going to quickly summarize that the Pahoa Community Center, Nanavali Estates, Leilani Estates, and Kalapana Seaview Estates sensors at around 10:20 p.m. average was all reading 0 parts per million for hydrogen sulfide and 0 parts per million for sulfur dioxide. Now moving on to our earthquake report.
looking at the last 24 hours of activity, we only show one quake, which is, of course, is southwest of Pu'u'o'o, and there's been no activity in the lower east rift zone as well in the last 24 hours. So that basically does it for the earthquake report. Nothing really to report there. So that will wrap it up for the general report. And now it's time for you know what. Look at that there. Okay, the first thing we're going to look at in our look at that there segment is this photograph of Fissure 8, which was published today by USGS. I believe it is a photograph of Fissure 8 today. And if we look, around the cone itself, we currently see that there is a lot of steam and smoke and stuff coming out. Because it's still very hot. But if you notice, it's not coming out of the fissure hole itself, where the lava was coming out of. It's coming out of the sides, which is pretty interesting, and I have no idea why that is. Now, what I really want you to take a look at that there is this right here. Let's zoom in. What I believe we're looking at right here in the middle of the picture, of course, is the crack, and USGS says they believe this level is the pre-eruption surface level, that the lava has retreated down to. But what I want to point out is, if you notice, there's these two holes, one on the top, which is shorter, and then one at the bottom, which is longer, almost twice the length. What I think, and I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm not, is that these are the sources for the lava fountains that were in the cone when it was erupting at its most grandest level, with the fountain shooting up 150, 180 feet. Now, what I think is if I remember correctly, there was 3, maybe 4 fountains, but I know 3 for sure that was in this cone. So the little hole is probably the source for one of them, and the bigger hole is probably the source for 2. And I think if the lava in that hole was lower, we may actually get down to a point where we would see a separation in like down the middle of that bigger hole, dividing into 2 smaller ones, like the one on the top, which is pretty cool. And the last thing I want to point out in this photo is there's been comments about the red rock and stuff. That is from what I understand, red cinder. It's one of the components that builds up these cones. The reason why it is red is due to a higher level of iron content in the magma when it erupted and produced and turned to cinder, whatever the process is for magma turning to cinder. But it had a higher iron content, and this iron oxidizes or rust very quickly in the environment because it's very hot and it's very acidic. Okay, so that does it for this one. Now what we're going to have you look at is another photo that actually I showed, I believe, in last night's update, but didn't include in the segment of look at that there, because it's just sometimes there's just so much. So we're going to get to this one because there's a video I want to show you. So enough running my mouth. Let's take a look at the photo. Okay, this photo is of the Halemaumau crater, looking into the cliff side. This is where a section of the floor or the crater itself slid down and exposed this rock. We see many layers here showing other eruptions, ash layers and rock layers and stuff like that. But a lot of people were asking about those 2 holes right there in the middle. So if you look at that there, they're asking, are these lava tubes? And I'm not a expert on the crater in the park, but I would say, looking the sheer size of them, and yeah, I would think these would be lava tubes of some kind. Where they were going, where they come from, I have no idea, but looking at how deep they are, they're probably pretty old. But I would say, hey, ask the USGS, about this photo and exactly what those are. I'm surprised they haven't, pointed it out themselves. This is a video taken on July 5th by the USGS and just released today, apparently. This is of a summit collapse that happened on July 5th. This image we're seeing here is of the Hawaii Volcano Observatory sign, and this is up at Jagged Museum. So I think this video will answer the question that people have been asking: will they reopen Jagged? I don't know. You tell me. This location probably will never be reopened, but perhaps they'll build another one somewhere else at a future date. So that pretty much does it for this update. Thank you for listening. Remember to check out my Smug Mug, my Redbubble, my Patreon. All those links are in the descriptions. If you want to send me a letter or something in the mail, there's an address you can use, thanks to Scott at Apau Hawaii Tours. And that'll do it. Y'all have a great morning, afternoon, or evening. This has been the Kilauea Eruption and Leilani Estates update for August 10th, 2018.